All right, everyone. Welcome to again the Angry Asian Uncle podcast. My name is Reynold, and of course, my co-host is.
Hey, it's Vic. Good to see you guys again.
Yes, good to see everyone again. So, welcome again, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Today, we have another guest, Kathy. Kathy, can you introduce yourself?
Well, thank you for having me here for one. It's an interesting conversation I think will happen. I'm a Canadian expat. I live in Japan now. I've been here for probably a total of just over 30 years, um, but not continuous. Went out for a little more than 10 years and lived in Lebanon, and then Georgia, Tbilisi, Georgia, and Doha, Qatar. And I don't know, did I just say Thailand? Did I start with
No,
that?
no, no, no.
Thailand was first.
Thailand. Oh, okay.
Yeah, Thailand.
Wow,
And my career has been in education. Um, the majority of it is early years in elementary. When our son went back to Canada to university, I left the classroom and started to get into administration. So I took leadership roles for the next 10 years or so. And then 5 years ago, I retired and we moved to kind of where we started in Japan. I live in Itoshima. And I decided to continue to pursue a passion that I started almost 30 years ago. And that is all about trying to understand the inner emotional world of boys and then share that awareness, that information to help parents and educators and everybody really to understand a little bit better so that especially as parents or educators that both the adult and the child have better experiences and just experience more joy.
that's amazing.
Since we, sorry,
I said that's amazing.
thank you. It's been a long time. Like before retiring, I used to do workshops for other teachers, for parents, trying to just share what I knew, really. And since retiring, I started up a business. I learned about all things internet, which was not part of my world. I learned about marketing and social media, and that's not a strong point for me or it doesn't come naturally. And so I started a website. My son helped me a lot and continues to do so. So I have a website, have a handful of online courses. I have a community membership. Last spring, like a year ago this spring, I published my first parent parent book about raising boys from 0 to 8. A year and a bit ago, I started a podcast, and currently that podcast is kind of like what brings me the most joy, besides working directly with clients. But the podcast, I am currently speaking to young men and dads and experts in the field of masculinity and mental health, and continuing to learn and grow and just share conversations and understandings. So that's me in a nutshell.
Wow, that's a lot. So, how many boys do you have?
I have one beautiful boy.
Oh, okay, great. Did you raise him abroad, as in like while you're in all those different countries, or did
But
you
he
first?
was he was born here. He was born in Japan
Oh,
and
okay.
spent his elementary years here in Japan. And then we went to Beirut, to Lebanon for his middle school and high school.
Hmm.
And then he went to Canada for his university. And after that, and it was at that point that my husband and I went to all the different countries.
Oh, I see. Okay. Wow. Okay. That's pretty cool. Okay. So tell us like where should we start? when it comes to boys, what should we know about boys, I guess?
Where I
Yep.
start
Yeah.
with parents, where I start with parents, I often pause. It takes me a
Oh,
minute. I want to
that's
think before
okay.
I answer. So when there's a pause, it's just the brain is trying to think how to collect my thoughts.
Okay.
The first thing I think is when people show any kind of an interest, like there's two things that happen. Either I talk to people like you who are hearing me for the first time and what I'm doing, or I'm hearing from people who want my services because their family life is in chaos and they have tried everything else. They need some support. So those are the two different ends of things. When I have the opportunity to talk to people who aren't in the chaos, then where I like to start is to help people recognize their own unconscious biases that they are bringing into their parenting, often not realizing what they're doing. So we spoke a little bit before recording this about um, looking at the way you were parented and keeping the good things, changing some of the other things and moving forward. Well, that's a general perspective. And when you narrow it down a little bit more and you're looking at it specifically through the lens of gender, it's fascinating what you will come up with. What I often speak of is a of something I do when I'm doing a workshop, and it's not my experiment. I had seen it online, but it really effective. But what it is, I would show a portrait to usually it's a small group of people. The experiment itself, they did it individually, but it doesn't really matter. And I would show a portrait of a toddler and I would ask you to write down, it was either four or five questions. I asked you to write down your answers. And it was a possible name for the child, what their character might be like, what their hobbies might be like, what a future career might be. And the first portrait of the toddler, that toddler was dressed in typical little girl clothing. You know, she had a little dress on and ribbon in the hair, and that was that one. Then I would bring out a second portrait, and that portrait was also of a toddler. And I asked exactly the same four or five questions. You know, what do you think the name of this child is, their character, their hobbies, and possible career? And that portrait looked like a stereotypical little boy. He had the baseball cap on backwards, he had the overalls on. And when that was finished, I would show both portraits and say, okay, look at what you answered. And most often, the answers were very stereotypical. And the little girl was, you know, Susie or Mary. She, you know, looked very sweet. She was probably going to be a nurse or an artist or a dancer or a teacher. And she was probably going to, you know, really, you know, I don't know, little girly things. Um, that was basically her personality. They looked at what they'd written for what they thought was a little boy, and they were stereotypical. It was like the kid's got the hat on backwards, and he looks like a, you know, he's a the what their responses reflected. Oh well, he looks like he's going to be trouble. You know, their parents are going to have their hands full with that one. He's
Right.
probably going to end up being a truck driver or a construction worker, and you know, who knows? Maybe he's going to end up in jail before he's 20. And then after, you know, kind of looking and examining their answers, then I said to them, it's the same child.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Interesting. Yeah.
But they couldn't tell from the onset.
No, because it's a
Hmm.
toddler. It's a
Okay.
toddler. Toddlers often you can't tell. Like you do base
True.
what you're doing on how they're clothed because, you know, lots of them don't
Right.
have any hair. they're toddlers.
That's true.
Right.
So those answers, that is the unconscious gender bias. But
Oh,
if you
interesting.
think that that little one is a boy and that he's going to, he's going to be a handful and he's probably going to get in trouble and that's the way you parent that child, it's a problem.
Mm.
So before you can do anything, you have to do a little bit of research, you have to do a little bit of, detective work and figure out what you've got going on that is impacting how you are raising your children. And then once you get there, then you start to open up the knowledge part of it and you learn more and you listen to podcasts, you read the books, you do the due diligence to see, well, what's it all about? What are these gender differences all about? And then you become an advocate and you put into practice what you're learning and you stand up for these little boys.
It's very interesting. Yeah, because both me and Vic are our father's a boy, so Vic's son is a little older. Mine's still 9, and mine's autistic. So yeah, I can sort of relate when everyone says, "Oh, he's autistic." It's not. He's gonna. He has a lot of educational issues or something. You sort of your mind sort of does go in a biased direction. Like, oh, he can't do anything. I have to do everything for him. Like I have to baby him or something. So you don't let him evolve or sort of grow or develop. You just do everything for him because you think, oh, he won't grow up, he can't get a job, he can't do anything, he can't even read and write and do math. Basically, it's sort of that when other people say that, you just sort of sometimes I'm speaking of myself. I sort of sometimes give in. So sort of like your test, like, oh, he's wearing his hat backwards. Oh, he's going to be trouble. It's just like, oh, so,
Yeah.
that stereotypical knee jerk reaction. No, he's autistic. He's special needs. He'll never amount to anything. It's just a sort of a knee jerk uh, sort of response to what we picture his life would be like.
Mhm.
Yeah. What about you, Vic? Any
Well, I
thoughts?
just realized that this experiment that Kathy was talking about shows you how much bias or our own bias comes into play when it comes to so many things, especially about identity, right? Also about gender. I think it's worthwhile to examine our own biases and then see which ones are really getting in the way of raising our children. That's what it made me realize. Also, by the way, Kathy, like after hearing all the stuff you did, I was gonna say, wow, you've been busy, huh?
Yes.
You've been all over the place. You traveled to so many places. You've been really doing a lot.
Well,
Um,
I've been blessed. I've had a great adventure so far.
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
definitely.
Yes. I mean,
Yes.
all that stuff. It sounds like a couple of lifetimes for people, but it's
Yes.
all fitted into one, right?
Well, it
Yeah.
goes by awfully fast.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. Especially
Yes.
raising boys. Like, yeah, mine is a little bit older. I don't know how old is your son, Kathy?
He's 32.
Okay, well,
Wow.
he's a full-grown adult now. He's an uncle, Reynold. He's an uncle.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
growing into becoming
Uh,
an uncle. Yes.
So there's
Uh,
32, there's 15, and yours is 9. Actually, Reynolds, I was gonna say, your little boy is gonna grow up so fast. Like before you know
yeah.
it, he'll be a teacher, right?
Yeah. Just
Mine
like I
boy is
just,
probably adult, like Kathy's son.
yeah.
Yeah, it goes by so fast. What I saw with my boy is that um, if you learn to separate yourself from all the biases that we talked about earlier, um, I noticed that your child's distinct personality comes out. I try to look for those cues, and I try to work around what his personality is. Like if I know he has an interest in sports, I see myself my role as a just like a facilitator, like somebody to help him with whatever he likes. And then I set boundaries for things that will obviously do harm to him or other people. That's where I set the boundary. Like for example, if I know that what he's about to do will hurt somebody, will for example, if he's going to grab a toy from another one of his playmates by force, that's where I set the boundaries. As he got older, if he wanted to be more aggressive in the sense that he's just demanding for things that he wants without consideration of other people in the family, I feel like that's my role as a father to step in and kind of set those boundaries. But other than that, let him be and let him explore himself. And then where I can, I try to help him out. Recently, he has an interest in becoming an architect. He wants to explore that part of himself. And I said, yeah, for sure. So I sent him to my brother-in-law in the Philippines, just for 5, 6 days, just for him to, because my brother-in-law is an architect, a builder. He designs a lot of buildings and homes. I said, this is the best way for you to explore that. Go spend some time with your uncle.
That's beautiful.
And if you spend some time with him, you realize that this is what you really want to do, then great. Just know that dad will be here to support you. That's kind of where I'm at right now.
If I had to, if I had to say, if someone forced me to say what is the most important thing that I think as far as parenting goes, I would have to say communication. Because if you understand how to communicate with your child, and if you have a relationship that's really quite deep and rich, there there's almost no limit to how the story, is going to turn out, because without good communication, then you don't understand each other. Often little boys will experience situations where because it's not understood, they will feel real embarrassment or shame or misunderstood, and their sense of self-worth and self-esteem doesn't grow to what their potential is. But if they have a situation where the communication is really strong, then even if things in the outside world aren't so good, often little boys struggle in school, then at least if at home or in their environment they have, at least one person that they communicate and connect really well with, then, they are going to thrive rather than simply survive.
Hey, Reynolds, I think that goes back to what we were talking about in some of our other episodes about creating a safe space, right? For our
Right.
children, where they feel that they can be open, they can share their thoughts
Yeah. Be
without,
themselves. Yeah.
yeah, where they can be themselves. Yeah, I think that's what Kathy's talking about.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think sometimes in Asian culture, Asian family, like for me, sometimes I feel it too, where I can't truly be myself because it's I don't know if living in Japan, you sort of experience that too, and in other families around there. But sometimes I just don't feel like I can be myself. It's not a safe place because there's so much expectations. Like there's so much things that's expected. Certain behaviors, certain things you can do or cannot do. Whether it's culture or religion or whatnot. It's just a lot of things hinder us from being our true selves. I mean, some maybe, of course, some are good, keeps us safe, but some are just sort of just hinders us and not allow us to be happy. I don't know. So, or give what are your thoughts, Kathy, on that?
I see. I mean, I understand it culturally in different cultures, but I also see the great similarity just with gender. So
Uh,
how I would look at it is, for a little boy, for example, as he's growing up in those, youngest years, his early years, he learns very quickly what is expected of him. And, the first time that he falls down and hurts himself and cries, and somebody says, boys don't cry, be tough, be a big boy.
Infamous.
He learns, well, he learns very quickly, though, okay, I hurt myself. I want to cry about this, but if I cry, I'm going to lose that connection with that person who's so important to me, whether it's my dad, my mom, the whoever. But whoever said that to them, if they're important, he wants to keep that connection. So in order to keep that connection, he will put on a bit of a mask so that the
Mm.
next time that he hurts himself and wants to cry, he'll remember and he'll pull that mask up and he won't cry because he knows you don't want him to cry. That's not what he needs to do if he wants to keep your connection. And over the years, little by little, every time something happens and he would show his true self, his authentic self, and the reaction is, "Oh no, 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 that's not how boys behave. That's not what they do. You need to do it this way if you want to fit in, if you don't want to be embarrassed, if you don't want to be isolated." So mask after mask after mask get put up until, you get a young man perhaps who has so many masks that he can't get back to that, original, authentic little boy inside because he's playing by the rules of society. This is what it means to be a man. This is how I have to behave if I'm going to fit in, if I'm going to, be able to function well in the society. And that's where you have so many problems because when you're not authentic with yourself, there's something missing inside and it's more difficult to maybe have deep connections in a relationship. There's more of a possibility or, for risky behavior or alcoholism or substance abuse, because you've put on all these masks. So then you have to start to numb things out because you cannot get back in there. But it all starts from the very youngest of ages.
I was just gonna say that I've lost track of how many masks I've put on over the years. Yeah,
Yeah.
Kathy's actually spot on. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Just looking at my own life, what you said is basically what I went through, and I've lost track of how many masks I have to put up,
Yeah.
especially being raised in the generation that we were raised in. I'm 47 now, so I come from that generation where, yeah, like you said, our parents were always like, oh, you got hurt? Oh, just walk it off, and just like be tough, like
Yeah.
what are you complaining about? Yeah, it was a very different time from how we raise our children now. And uh, to your point, I realized, yeah, after you said that, that I've had to put on so many masks just to, get along with the people who are important to me or just get along in society that really, when I look back now, it's hard to find my genuine self. Like that. I've lost track of how many I've had to put on. Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
And it's sad. It doesn't need to be that way. Like it just that's where the awareness comes in. If
Yeah.
if parents can be more aware of, what those words do, what that, like I call it the boy code, but how that impacts your child as they're growing up. If there's more awareness, and that comes back to the biases, then we can intentionally parent differently. But until there's an awareness, it just perpetuates.
Well, Reynold, one more thing before I hand it over to you. I also realized what Kathy said about how it impacts your relationship to maybe, for example, my wife. Yeah, I noticed that it had a bearing on it because it's hard for me to find my authentic self. Sometimes I have a little bit more difficulty connecting with my spouse, right? Because we're trying to seek for genuine connections and to be open with each other. But how do you do that when you're not even sure who you are? Like
And the
I
other
don't, I'm not
Yeah.
even
person,
sure who I am, right?
but that's just it. Like, I talk about this with young children, but, half the population is men. And everything I've learned certainly has impacted my relationship with my husband, with all the males in my world. But, you know, it comes to the communication. If we don't know the differences between males and females, if we don't understand how they communicate differently, how they express emotions differently, how they um, hear differently, then we're never going to get to that really, really tight connection that is possible, I think.
So, is there even a solution to all this? Because playing devil advocate is there's always going to be two parties, right? Sort of. Um, the party that want you to be wearing those masks, right? The ones that are setting up all these expectations, and then we as men or boys have to continue to put on these masks to sort of fit in or to be accepted by society. And then if we said suddenly that, hey, us boys, us men, or certain boys and men want to take off these masks, and then we don't get accepted, like, how do we take off the mask and like continue on? Do we just not care about it? Because some of these people that do care, like say, don't cry or, you know, or walk it off or whatever it is, these could be our parents, our family, maybe even our significant others, our wives, girlfriends, or whatnot. How do we go about this? Because I love that there, you're raising awareness, but awareness isn't an overnight thing. It takes years, sometimes centuries to right for awareness to kick in. And then, so what do we?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So for me, I'm stuck at what do we do at this moment while we're waiting for awareness to kick in?
Well, I don't think it's waiting, for one thing. I think it's a very active, I don't know, initiative that you go through. I believe that you have to really work at understanding. So if you are raising a child, then you have so much power to influence action. So that's where the golden gem is. If you can become aware and you can help support these next group of little boys who are growing up so they don't have to put on so many masks, or at least they understand, oh, that's the system. Like, I'm supposed to put on this mask. So they're aware. So that's a crucial part of it. So I know, like, when I raised our son, um, I could create our home environment, but I was limited to what I could do in the school environment, even though I understood it because that was my environment as a career. I couldn't always protect him from what was commonplace in society. But in our environment, I could make sure he understood all emotions were fine. Um,
Right.
there were acceptable ways to express them, like if they were strong, intense, maybe whatever it is, there are ways to express them, but all emotions were fine. And I could point out examples of biases, like, we could look at a Disney cartoon and say, well, look at how that little boy is being, presented, and the little girl. What do you think about that? Like, I don't think that boys can't do that, or I don't think that girls need to only be like those conversations can become part of the environment that they're growing up in. So those kids have a strong possibility that their self-esteem is going to be strong. And that self-esteem will help them be able to um, kind of understand that maybe the rules of the game in society will require them to put on some of those masks in order to fit in, in the workplace, in school, on the ballpark court or whatever. But they will understand that's not their authentic self. Their authentic self is the one that they have at home. And when they get into relationships, especially as they get older, when they get into relationships where they have intimate connection with other people, they will be able to allow that real person to come back out, that real little boy to come back out, because the masks aren't cemented one on top of the other. They know the masks don't need to stay on, and that's the difference. So, talking from the other side, people who are adult males now who have gone through the whole process of putting all those masks on. My thinking is that and I am seeing it, like I think it's a very exciting time, to be honest, because I am hearing from so many men and seeing so many like movements really of men supporting each other, of men becoming aware of this environment and learning more and supporting other men, supporting other fathers trying to raise their children. And so I think as an adult, you have to become aware. You have to understand where you're coming from and whether you get that from therapy, from reading books, from listening to podcasts, whatever it is, from talking to your best friend, whatever it is. But you can grow and develop and do the inner work yourself as well. And you can reach out to these groups so that you just keep growing and growing and don't fall into the same pattern that just keeps going. Like you become more intentional about how you're living as a male.
I see. So the uncles have homework to do.
No, it's what we were
We have a
talking about
mission.
in one of the episodes that we had, Reynolds, about one of the challenges I see for people in our generation is how do you reparent yourself? And because like we're dealing with how to unlearn a lot of the stuff that is truly unnecessary for our growth. So we have to reparent ourselves and at the same time be parents to our own children. I think that's one of the key challenges that we have for, people growing up in our generation. And I think to Kathy's point, what I hear when you say those things is basically just empowering our children with the right tools so that they can decide what best to do at any given situation, right? Like you can't be everything to everyone all at once, right? But you can, however, choose the best course of action in any given situation. So I think right there that itself is this great distinction because being self-aware and knowing what's going on, despite having to play the game, that's already a significant difference, right? You're not just going about it
Yeah.
blindly anymore or ignorant. You're not ignorant about the thing. You're aware of what's going on. And that in itself is already a powerful difference.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Yeah. Back to the crying. I think just emotions. I want to share. Like I cry. I guess you mentioned Disney movies. I started crying. I remember I started crying publicly. Uh, Toy Story 3. I remember I watched that in Taiwan, and I was teaching English, so it was private tutoring. So that day we were taking the kids. I only had one kid at that time I was teaching, so I took him to see Toy Story, and I was sitting next to him, and I was just bawling. I was just crying. I don't know. That Toy Story 3 really got to me. I was just like,
It does. It hits hard. Yeah. I think a lot
yeah,
of uncles say the same thing.
yeah.
You're the ones with
But
other
from
kids.
then on, I just like I started crying at a lot of Disney movies. Yeah, especially when Iron Man died. Spoiler alert! I also cried a lot too. It wasn't just a fictional character, but I'm saying this is because we were like, again, the infamous like don't cry, don't, especially in Chinese we say don't cry unless it has to do with death. Like if someone didn't die, you don't get to cry. So it's
Wow.
yeah, I hear it all the time where I forgot the exact, maybe Vic knows, is like it's my mom says it all the time, like it's like you know you can only cry because of death. So I mean she says it in Chinese, but I can't recall
Mm.
the phrase right
Yeah,
now.
our parents
So
are
yeah,
so dysfunctional on so many levels, and they grew up in an environment that was even more suppressive than we did. I'm amazed that they made it this far, honestly. I mean, when I hear about how they were raised, like my dad used to be tied up to a tree and beaten by my grandfather. Can you believe that? I mean, because this
Oh,
is
wow.
and Kathy would probably appreciate this aspect of history a little better. My grandfather grew up during the Japanese era of Taiwan. They used to
Mhm.
be here for 50 years, right? And so my
Yeah.
my grandfather is a product of that. And my dad got the tail end of it, which is my grandfather's idea of discipline. When he was I don't know, maybe 10 to 14 years old. Again, anytime he was, uh-oh.
Hello.
Oh, Reynolds just turned that off by mistake, perhaps.
Oh,
So that's okay. Just start it
oh,
again.
okay.
Oh
Sorry.
no, Reynolds, we got cut off.
Yes. Well, we're back on right now. Are you still back on?
So now we have to make this podcast like a two-parter.
It has. I'm recording in my room, so it's a little bit further from the router. So maybe that's why. I don't always get to use
So I guess we
the
can fix that
the office.
post-editing. We just upload both part one and
Right?
part two.
Yeah. Well, it did
You
cut
know,
out,
when
so
you were
yeah. But yeah,
when
I'll
you were
do it.
just talking about the discipline and punishment from previous generations, and there are cultural things that go to it, and there are just basic generational things that go with it. Because even, when I was growing up, and so in the 60s, early 60s, I would say, and I remember there was a family a few doors down, and I was friends with their younger daughter, and then she had a older sister that was 3 or 4 years older. And I can remember the older sister being taken down to the basement and beaten with a belt
Ooh,
because the boy looked at her and she looked back or something like. And so it's not, and I know for my parents, the um, the rule was children were to be seen and not heard. So when there was a family dinner or whatever, and grandparents were there as well, children were not allowed to basically to talk. Like, it was a complete generationally, things have changed over time, and luckily, like I think it's religiously that we had the inkling that what is it, spare the rod and spoil the child, which I also have strong feelings about discipline.
right. So yeah, things are so different back then. And as you can imagine, if that's the way my father was brought up, you can imagine the way he developed as a person, as a boy, right? And so, in his view, walking it off is a mild thing compared to what
Yeah,
he went through. So, like in his view, is I'm already being very kind towards the way I raised you. I still got a little bit of that beating when I was younger, right away. So it's not like I was completely immune to it. Um, but I think because it was so normalized for
hmm
him that he didn't really see a problem with it. But I do think that as he got older, he started with the benefit of hindsight, and also because consciousness has moved on from the 1950s and 60s. He realized that a lot of the parenting that he did might have been unnecessary or even wrong at times. So at least there is that progress,
yeah,
that evolution, right? Yeah. And then coming to me, I'm trying to unlearn a lot of the things that were given to me, and I still find myself, I still catch myself doing those things every once in a while with my own children. But like you said, when you have the awareness, at least you can catch it. Then you
yeah,
can put a stop to it, right? And then I recall a time I even apologized to my son immediately because it was a knee-jerk reaction on my part. He was really being quite noisy at a restaurant, and we couldn't eat properly. And then I overreacted. I think it was really way overreacted on my part. But right after I apologized to him, I said, "I'm sorry, Daddy was wrong. Like what you did maybe next time you shouldn't be so noisy in public. But my reaction was a little bit over the top, and I'm sorry. And I think that fundamentally changed our relationship.
That's
He
the
saw from
communication
that instance,
key.
yeah, he saw from that instance that number one, dad can admit when he's wrong. And
Yeah.
number two, he can trust me. Like I'm not a monster, right? Like
Yeah.
there might be times because I'm human that I will make mistakes, but then he realized that, oh, well, dad is human and then he makes mistakes like everybody else, and I can trust him because we can talk it out. Like you said, communication is so important.
Yeah.
Right after the moment when we reassess what we've done and we're open to each other and we talk about it, that's when the trust begins to build, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I think nowadays, um, I speak with other parents. There's in our generation, at least, there's more self-reflection. We think about what we did, and maybe I just don't know, or where my parents' generation, at least for my parents, I feel sometimes they don't reflect on what they do. Um, then again, maybe I'm just not in that conversation. Maybe it happens behind closed doors, but I just feel like a lot of time there is no self-reflection of what they do or how they discipline or how they go about doing things, as well as it's more of uh, I'm the parent, my way or the highway sort of ordeal. And if you're not getting with the program, then hey, yeah, I'm going to be taking out the belt. And then there's no feeling sorry about that action. It was very standard. It felt like it's very standard. This is how it's raising kids is. This is how whether I'm a parent, whether I'm right or wrong, I'm the parent. I make the rules. This is my house. This is how it's going to be. And then I grew up
That's
like
very
that.
I
typical
think it's
Asian
Yeah,
parent behavior, don't you think, Reynolds? Like I
yeah,
think a lot of our parents are like that. Asian parents tend to behave that way.
But
yeah.
I don't think it's just Asian parents. And I think it's something I think is really important. And I will honestly say it took me a while to understand this. But I think it's really important to be mindful of not looking at what our parents did through only through our lens. So I know like I used to actually be a little bit I couldn't understand how my mother, uh, how she let me be in the hospital when I was so young, and didn't question the doctors, didn't question, didn't step in and it boggled me. But I was looking at it through my lens, like. If a doctor told me those things, I would be looking for a second,
Oh yeah, for
second
sure.
opinion. I'd be doing all my Googling myself.
Yeah,
I'd go in armed with, but the important thing that I didn't remember, or I wasn't aware of, and it changed everything when was in that period of time, what was, uh, what was the norm? What was understood to be best practices? Was you listened to and believed your doctor. You did not question your doctor. That used to be that way in education too. You had no power as a parent and you just listened. So I think whenever we look back at what our parents did or didn't do, I think we have to be really careful not to judge that on how we would do it now. And I kind of really do believe that, everyone kind of does the best they can with whatever they've got. And if they had better, maybe they could have done better.
yeah. It's important
A
to be
good
more
perspective.
forgiving of our parents.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I heard that before. Oh, in general, parents do the best that they can with what they have, right? Even us, our generation, we're doing the best of what we can with what we have, and then maybe in the future, when our kids are look back, oh, they were so tough on us. There has to be a better way, right? So I mean, our kids would be, oh, there's they come up with a better way. And then
And Kathy,
our
it's
ways are.
interesting. I just had this conversation with my mother last night when I was driving her home. Um, and yeah, I think I could be a little bit more forgiving because yesterday when we were having that conversation, it was a typical like, oh gosh, you guys made so many mistakes, and um, you really should acknowledge some of those mistakes. So, but one of the things that I remember telling her is that I feel that they have no excuse not to have done better because not all parents were like that. It's like, yes, they grew up in that generation, so there were a lot of things that they were not aware of. They did the best they could. But if it was across the board and everybody was behaving like that, fine, I could maybe accept that. But over the years, as I got to know more people and more of my peers as parents, and I was able to see that, hey, wait a second, not all parents from that generation failed miserably at parenting. It's like some were actually pretty good, even though it was, back in the 70s and 80s, right? So they did okay.
But how can you say that they have failed? Like I'm meeting you for the first time, but whatever they did, and if they did things that put you in a position that you knew you were going to change because that wasn't the best way for you, they still gave you that. So something about your upbringing
Oh,
worked,
for sure.
whether
It's
it was
always, you can't throw
positive
the
or
baby
negative.
out with the bathwater, right? So, like, yeah, obviously there are good stuff. I like to think just because I'm awesome, Kathy, that's why it turned out okay. I'm kidding.
Could be.
But no, but I do think that, and I tell Reynolds this all the time, is that I do believe that not all experiences are necessary. So like, yes, because this is the way they brought me up. It brought me to where I am today. It gave me the life experiences that turned me into who I am. But when I look back at my life experiences, I do acknowledge that there were some experiences that I felt were unnecessary. Like I could have done without that and still turned out to be who I am today. So like the way I look at my role now as a parent is I'm like a curator of experiences. Like if it's something obviously not necessary or detrimental, even if your child went through it and came out the other end okay, but it's really not necessary. I try to block out a lot of that wherever I can. And um, I'm not exactly sure if what I'm doing is right or wrong because like who am I to judge what's a good or bad experience, right? But at least speaking for myself, I do see that some experiences I really wish I didn't have to go through anymore.
Can
I
you
don't know
give
if
me
that
an
makes sense.
example? Can you give me an example?
Like, okay, one of the examples, like, for the most part, my parents were never around. My our family moved from Taiwan to Manila actually because my dad opened up a business in the Philippines. And a year after he moved there, he moved all of us with him, right? But shortly after that, him and my mom separated, and my mom left the Philippines and came back to Taiwan. So we were left with our father, who was never around, because he was busy working. He'd be traveling to China, he'd be doing all kinds of stuff for his work. And so we basically had to raise ourselves, right? And because of that, yes, it toughened me up. I realized early on that a lot of school activities, for example, parent teacher conferences, or even just like school fairs, all the other kids as parents would show up. And I've learned early on to accept that they're not going to show up. And that was very crushing for a young boy, right? Because everyone else's parents are there. And you're like, where are my parents? I felt no support. I felt no love. So that was very crushing. And I realized that, oh wow, it really hurt me deeply. And I could have learned lessons about support and about being there for someone without going through something so drastic. And the reason why I find it hard to forgive them is because they could have been there if they wanted to. So like, yes, he was busy. But really, if he wanted to, he could have made the time. Now that I'm older and I understood what he was doing. And same thing for my mom. I said, like, I understand that your relationship with my father wasn't that great. But for you to leave the country and leave three kids to fend for themselves was a bit extreme. Like, there could have been other things you could have done. Maybe you could have moved out, lived in a different house, but you didn't have to leave the country, right? I'd still see you at the very least. So like there were a lot of actions they took. Um, I realized that if they had just given it a little bit more of a thought, they could have done those things a lot better. Like it wouldn't have been ideal anyway because of life circumstances, but would have been a lot less painful for the children. So like that's why I look back now and I am a little bit slower to forgive, and I point that out to them as an adult now, hoping that they would see it for what it is. That because it's funny, my mom would always like, "Oh, I'm a great parent." I'm like, "Really? So what makes you say that?" Like, give me specific examples. And in her mind, she genuinely thinks that she did a great job. So did my dad. It's like, oh well, I did a great job. I'm a great dad. I'm like, oh really? And like, okay, so tell me why you think you're a great dad or a great mom. And every time they would give me reasons, it's like, oh, that's not how I remembered it. Like I would tell them a lot of these things that I went through, and they'd be genuinely horrified.
Yeah.
I'll give you another example. Like there was a there was a whole year when I was in grade school that I didn't have any lunch money, simply because they forgot. They just forgot to give me lunch money. And I was horrified. I was like, well, how am I supposed to eat? My dad was never around. And mind you, these were the days before the cell phone, right? So it's not like I could just call him up and find him, right? And my mom was out of the country. And, my dad would leave a little bit of money with my older sister every month, and she would, give out the money so that we would have money to spend. But then they generally just forgot that I didn't have any lunch money. So for a whole year, I was just like, creeping my way into the cafeteria and then pretending I had one of those meal tickets to eat, right? And when I told them that, they were like, "Really? We did that to you?" Like, yeah. And then there was a complete oversight on their part, right? And then they were horrified to find out that that's what they did.
So again, like every story will always come back to communication. Like that's one thing. And the other thing is our experiences, even like with your siblings. If you can uh like I learned when my mom passed away and there's six of us, six, well, there's only five now, but siblings. And we would be sitting down and like sorting out her things and we'd be bringing up memories. And not one of us had the same memory about the same event.
Oh,
We
interesting.
we all, and that makes sense though, because each time, like your parent was different for you and different for your sibling because of the experiences, the time in between one and the other. Like it does make sense. But the other thing that has also been helpful is when I look at things not like, oh, this happened to me. Because that's where, for me, I can get judgmental and I can get a little bit annoyed with a situation because I think, well, I could have done that better and you could have done it better too. But if I look at it through the lens of this is happening or this happened for me, not to me. So what did I learn from it? What did I get out of it? What was, it was a gift to me, even though it might not have felt like a gift at a time. But what did I get from it? Like, how did that help me grow? How is that helping me being a better parent for my kids? Because that happened for me at that time. And just changing that perspective can make it a little bit easier with things that we keep holding on to with a little bit of anger or regret.
Yeah, that's very benevolent on your part. I'm, I'm so judgy. Hey, Reynolds, this is the part that the angry Asian uncle comes out, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
I hear what
I
you're
could,
saying. I get
yes.
it.
Yeah, I mean, I try to, I try to do what Kate says. I try to practice that recently, or just more in recent years, because of all the anger I have towards just my parents. I mean, even I can go through certain things, and just a few things like for being blind, like even the doctors. These are people with PhDs who have been studying this for years, right? 20 years, and then they're saying, "Oh, this is a hereditary disease," and then and I still get the when I bring it up to the I, when no, I got this, and maybe it's because of my delivery, it could be my bad communication delivery where I said, I got this because of you. It's an inherent disease, and they're like, no, 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 don't get this wrong. Don't put it on us. It's not because of us. It's because you're playing too much video games, because you're on the computer all the time. That's why you're blind. Oh, but the doctors that have a PhD been studying the retinal for so many years, they don't know what they're talking about, right? But my mom seems like she does, right? So that's that, and then so it just stems like that's just one, that's just one thing that just sort of severed the communication with my mom just because of that idea. It's just like I just can't communicate with her as much anymore because just her thinking seems to be, in my perspective, in my lens, is all out of sync. And then I could just never this communication, which I'm still working on. Maybe Kathy can give us some insight on how to communicate. Um, even or maybe how we can communicate with our kids because I find I feel it's too late for me and my parents. I think
Too
that
late.
I think that, but
Uncle
you
Lin
know,
is saying.
trying to I'm trying to do it right for the next generation for my kid. How do I, not be like that? How be like, no, your autism is not from me, or it had nothing. You just you're just born with a bad deck of cards. Don't blame me, right? Yeah. So it's I could easily do that, right? It's so easy, just like, oh, put the blame on. Yeah, it's your own fault, right? You didn't.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
that's when you look at it the same thing, though. That's the same thing. If you look at it, this is something that happened for you,
Mhm.
not to you.
No. Okay.
So it's kind of like, with a developmental, um, like your blindness came in steps, right?
Yeah, it's a
Like
gradual degeneration. Yeah, but it's still,
degeneration,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and
So
yeah.
it would be easy to come from the lens of this is happening to me.
Mhm,
And it would be create a lot of anger, I would think, and
mhm,
frustration because it's something that's happening to you. And in
right.
your particular situation, you're saying that it's hereditary. So you actually have someone that you can point the finger at.
Yeah, right.
But if you can look at it, and I'm not saying that it's easy because there's
Mhm,
so much pain and complication in everything connected with relationships. But if you can get to that point where you start to think and like just think, is it possible? Is this something that if I think it happened to me, then what is the reason? What can I benefit and grow from? Thinking, okay, this is a gift that's been given to me. It doesn't feel like a gift, but it is a gift. What is it I'm supposed to do with it?
Yeah.
That's the question,
Um,
right?
so
That's
spiritual
the
too,
hard part, right? Yeah.
Kathy. Uh, I think your viewpoints are very, very spiritual. Actually, it's very, a lot of mystics or gurus would say the same thing, which is all these things that happen to us. If you view them through the lens of, it's something to help you grow. Yeah, it's these are things that are given to you, and for whatever you feel about them at the moment, ultimately, uh, it's to help you grow in consciousness, it's to help stretch you out as a person. And I think what you're saying is very spiritual stuff. So yeah,
Well, but
it's a
I'm not
matter of,
saying it's easy. I'm not saying
yes,
it's
I understand
easy,
that. Yeah,
and
yeah,
I'm
I
not
understand.
saying that you can do it all the time. Like,
Right. It's a
so
matter of understanding it, but also putting it into practice. The practice part is the harder part, right? I think that's what you're saying.
it
Yeah,
is.
yeah, but definitely just to be aware of it, though. is
Yeah.
already a big step. Also, like just to contextualize what I was saying, it's not that I want to sound ungrateful to to my parents or like the my life circumstances, but I am calling out their bullshit, right? So if they're saying like, oh, I was a great parent, it's like, oh, okay, let's break this down, I'm just saying each of us has to be responsible for our BS. That's all I'm saying. Like you can
But
call them out on.
if you have that good of a relationship with your parents that you can sit down and have those conversations, boy, you've got a really good thing going.
Oh, thanks.
Because, and the things that you can learn. Like one of the best things that I ever did to that helps me understand my father better was I I I don't lie, but I will say I told a little white lie. And I told my father, because I had just started therapy for the first time, and the therapist said, you have to figure something out about your dad. And so I went home that summer and I said, I've started a course and it's about seniors. And part of my project is I have to interview someone, of a certain age. Can I interview you? And we sat that summer for, I don't know, a couple of weeks. I ended up, at that time, it was cassette players, and I ended up with like 10 uh, cassette players, each an hour and a half. And we went through his life and his philosophy of life. It was, I didn't know my dad, and I thought I knew him well. We were very close. And so when you have a good enough relationship that you can just have those conversations, and if you can have it without having to pretend that you're doing some course or something, even better. But that's where you'll just like curiosity is the other thing, along with communication, but curiosity and just like what were they thinking when whatever they did that you thought was so wrong, what were they thinking? And just to get that knowledge, it just helps you paint a bigger picture.
Yeah, it must have been wonderful bonding for you and your dad,
Incredible. Well,
right?
he said that I was picking his soul. Like he was exhausted by the end of it, but
Speaking
I
of that,
loved
though,
it.
now that I have a daughter of my own, it kind of reframes everything for me again about raising a son and being a son. Having a because little boys are one thing, it's one thing to they're very different. That's what I realized that, the
Yes.
way you bring up a boy and a little girl, because fundamentally, even at a very young age, my daughter is 2 years old right now. And even at this
Oh,
age, you can see the differences, right?
yeah.
And it's fascinating for me. And it reframes a lot of what I thought I knew about parenting because stuff that used to work on my son when he was 2 years old doesn't work anymore for my
Exactly.
little girl.
Exactly.
And not that, one is better than the other, but they're very different in that you yourself have to adjust and, pick up some new ideas and techniques on how to parent. And one of the things that I learned is that with little girls, they're a lot more eager to communicate with you. At least mine is. And
Yeah.
that's so different from boys. Boys are just you have to talk to them differently. And little girls, they're very eager, even at 2 with limited vocabulary. They're trying to tell you all the time how they feel inside, and you have to acknowledge that feeling, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very fascinating. So I think the more we parent, the more we learn, the more we understand the broader picture of what this whole thing is all about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I find it's a blessing for you guys to be able to speak with your parents without blowing up. Because it feels like every time I speak with my parents, it only takes a few minutes, probably less than a minute, and then we start getting it just at each other's throats. It's like it starts going from a conversation of something to like we're attacking each other. It's like, uh, but yeah.
It's okay, Reynolds.
Well,
Don't feel too bad about that. That's like 90% of Asian parents that I know. Yeah.
or just parents in general. I know that Asian parents are a little bit different in their child rearing, but I think there's a lot of people that, can't have these conversations because there's too much, like they're volatile. And there are so many vulnerable spots. Um, it's hard. It has to be, and sometimes you can't do it directly. Sometimes you have to, have somebody help you with those conversations if they're important to have to you.
Yeah, it took me
Yeah.
years, Kathy. By the way, I wanted to tell you a while ago was that the reason why I'm able to communicate with my parents now is because I found the courage to do it. Like it took years. Like
Yeah.
for the longest time, I was terrified of my father, for example. And I got to where I am today. I made the effort to really try to open up and get them to talk. I mean, it's one thing that I want to talk, but if they don't want to talk to me, it's
Yeah.
useless, right? But yeah, so it took a lot of time to get to where I am today. And also, I think it's an age thing. As they get older, they also want to reconcile a lot of the things that they did in life, and for their children to understand them a little better,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it's a two-way street. I'm glad that at least they're willing to talk. They still
Well,
wouldn't admit that they're awful parents, but then, one
but
step at a
then,
time, baby steps, baby steps.
and taking advantage of what you can take advantage of. And I will tell you, because of understanding a little bit better about aging now, as people get older, some people maybe get a little bit angrier, but I think the majority of people kind of get to a point they don't have to be angry at things. They don't have to. Their kids are grown. They don't have that responsibility. Their career is maybe finished. Like maybe they're just living the life or whatever, but it's an opportunity. So whereas you couldn't talk to them 20 years ago, you might be able to have a really good conversation with them now just because of where they are, as well as where you are.
Reynolds, there's hope.
I was thinking this.
Take a
I was
deep breath,
thinking more
man.
along this is our origin story. This is how we became the angry Asian uncle. This is a parent was a child parent issues. Uh,
Nobody wants to be angry. It's exhausting to be angry, right, Kathy? Like nobody wants to be angry. But these childhood trauma, these things that you have to unpack. It's worthwhile to examine because yeah, like I said, the feelings are there. You have to find out why, right? Nobody wants to be angry.
Yeah, and yeah, that's maybe one of the hardest emotions to have to deal with. And although it sounds a little kind of woo-woo, but truthfully, if almost everything that you look at, if you try to look at it through the lens of love, and I wish we could say that without thinking we have to apologize for
Mm,
sounding
mm,
flaky for
mm,
saying it.
mm,
But that's really the truth.
mm.
And no matter what happens, if you really try to look at it through the lens of love, then, so for example, I'm not, anyway, I'm very positive, but somebody left a comment on one of the YouTube shorts and it was nasty. And it was directed towards me, but it was really nasty and I could have, and in the past perhaps I would have, that would have just eaten me up, like kind of, wow, I've really sunk low if this is opinion people have of me. But now it's automatic. It was like, oh my God, what pain is this person having in their life that they're lashing out in such a horrible way to someone else? Like
Mm.
I feel such, you know,
Yeah,
empathy.
yeah.
And that's the difference. Instead of, it hitting you, if you're really trying to look at things through the lens of love, you have compassion rather than the anger.
Mm.
Work in progress, I'll tell you that.
right.
For all of us, I think. I
We're all
think
work in progresses, yes. But
yeah,
yeah,
Reynolds, who was it that was it one of our guests, Maddie, who said put into work, right? That helps you, like journaling,
Oh
meditation.
yeah.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
You
That's
put
why
into
there's so
place.
much. Yeah, that's why there's so much self-help books out there. Self-help
Yep.
products, right? We're all we're the endless we're endless project. We're as us humans, we're never
work
done.
in progress. Right?
Yeah, we're a
Yeah.
work in progress
I
now
think
until we die.
to her point, I think she pointed all that out because you do the work for the bad days. So like we all have good and bad days. So like on the good days, you put in the work so that when the bad days do come, you're
Yeah.
prepared for it, right? You're
Yeah.
strong. If you're only gonna do the work on the bad days, that's a little too late.
Yeah.
You have to uh, have enough of that moat, right? That love moat, so
Yeah.
that you don't get crushed by the bad days. So, yeah,
Yeah.
meditation,
It's
journaling,
constant.
talking to people, like what we're doing today with Kathy. Just even sometimes like a community of one, right? Because nowadays it's
Yeah.
harder for people to find communities. But even if you have a good friend, it's just a community of one. Even that
Yeah.
goes a long way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely
Yeah.
does. Yes. So yeah, definitely find a community, work on yourself. These are all things we should do. And I always say, like, I'm sort of like Kathy. When people make a bad comment, or it sort of sticks with me. I always been that way, even if it's just nothing major. But one thing I've been trying to tell myself is that why give this person the power, right? Why give them the power to alter your emotions? Like, it's sort of like you're giving these people too much power. The person that's supposed to adjust, the only person that should be able to adjust your own emotions is yourself, right? Right? You, ourselves, we should be the one to decide if we're going to be angry or sad or happy or whatnot. So, uh, and just from that, you can also say, hey, if I have that power, I could decide to be happy all the time then.
Yeah, easier said than done, though.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
yeah, like I said, yeah, easier said than done. But it's a nice thought, right? It's a nice thought.
Mm.
Uh, but yes, I feel like Kathy has definitely shared a lot of wisdom with us today. But usually at the end of our episodes, we like to give the audience a take-home message. But you've given us so much. Is there some sort of universal thought you want to say to sort of wrap all of these nuggets of wisdom?
Oh, before Kathy replies to that, I just want to say, Kathy, you've made it when somebody leaves a nasty comment on one of your shorts. That's how you know you've made it. You're successful. Like
Right?
that's a problem that Reynolds and I wish we had. Like if somebody would
Yeah.
leave,
Mm.
like, yes, Reynolds, we made it. We're relevant enough to affect someone's emotions.
Right. We're
Yeah, but
hated.
what I can't understand is why can someone comment on a 1 minute short? Like if you watch the whole episode and you have a comment, I'll gladly respond to it. But on a 1 minute short, you haven't listened to the episode. Like how, yeah, it astounds me. But one of the things I love about technology, and actually I'd heard it from somebody before, to do it in your own life, in your own head. But what I love is that I can go to that comment and look at it, send them love, and sorry that you're, feeling that you have to lash out to me about whatever problems are going on in your own world. And then I can push delete and
Yeah,
just
there you
and
go.
it's gone.
There
And
you
it's like,
go.
oh, I
Yes.
love this. Like
Yeah.
no hangover here at all. It is gone.
Right.
Mhm.
That's a
Exactly.
good thing.
Yes. Or you
That's
could
a
just.
successful YouTuber problem.
That's right.
Well, that's a nice way to, well, that's a very positive way. It is
Right.
happening for me, not
Yes,
to
for
me.
you. Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Me and Reynolds, we look forward to the day we get one of those.
Right. And then I'm gonna try.
So
How do
do
I
you want me to
delete it?
do that?
Oh no. That
It's
would
gonna
be
Yeah.
stay on there forever
unnecessary
because
content.
I can't find the delete button. I'll be like, where's the delete button? She says there's a
I can't
Yeah.
delete
find it.
button. Oh,
So
but
yeah,
thank you
Kathy, any
again. Yes.
words of wisdom for all of us before we wrap things up?
Well, I always have so much to say about the information and the knowledge and the awareness. But I think what I really need to say is for people to reach out. Like this conversation isn't restricted. And you know, when like I've spent 30 years thinking and putting into practice these things. I've worked with, you know, hundreds, thousands of children and, you know, hundreds of parents. And I do a lot of things for free. So it's kind of like when you're parenting, if you're interested or if you're having some trouble with your little boy, grab one of my free things and talk to me. You know, what like I don't understand why people don't do that.
Yeah, the resources are out there, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
and you know, so many of us, and being an expat, I know this very well. So many of us are not surrounded by family. And people like myself who have moved a lot, sometimes you don't have even a close circle of friends. And we try to do it all on our own, and you can't. You can't do it on your own, and you don't have to. And so that would be my message. Don't try to do it alone. This job of parenting is Amelia Gambate. She's from Reggio Emilia. She says the job that we do as parents is too beautiful and too difficult to do alone.
Mm. Wow. Words of wisdom.
Takes a
Hers,
village to raise a kid, right? It
it
takes a
does.
village, right? Yeah. Wow. Uh, I don't know how to follow that up. Vic, do you have any you want to share?
Make sure to give your kids lunch money. You don't ever forget
Yeah, right.
that.
Unless you're trying to punish them.
Cranky
I
kids
don't
don't
know.
get
I
good
mean, I
kids,
don't know.
right? Hungry
Maybe
kids
Vic
make
did something
cranky
really
kids.
bad where he doesn't get lunch for the whole year.
Yeah, literally. I'm not even exaggerating. It was a whole year, right?
Oh, man. Wow. But for me, I'm just gonna say it's okay to cry, especially if it's Toy Story 3. And if Iron Man dies, it's okay. You know. But thank you again, Kathy. Thank you again for today. Definitely hope to have you on again. Thank you everyone for joining us. Please share, like, um, of course, and subscribe. Again, sharing is caring. Thank you everyone. See you guys on the next episode.
Thank you, Kathy.